Welcome to Placertopia Live, Season 2, Episode 4. I am Paul Godwin, your host. Placertopia Live is a production of Myrtle Tree Arts and the Green Room Social Club. We acknowledge that the Green Room Social Club and Placerville are located on the unceded traditional homelands of the Miwok, Maidu, and Nisenan peoples who have lived here for thousands of years and live here still today. In recognition, we acknowledge and mourn the painful history of genocide. We are honored to learn from and actively engage local tribes in our work. Thanks for joining us at home, on YouTube, on Spotify, Apple Music, iHeart, or right here with our physical audience in beautiful downtown Placerville. We have a great show for you today. Our featured interview is with Ben Goldfarb. Ben is an independent conservation journalist. He's the author of Crossings, How Road Ecology is Shaping the Future of Our Planet, named one of the best books of 2023 by the New York Times, and Eager, The Surprising Secret Life of Beavers and Why They Matter, winner of the 2019 Penn E.O. Wilson Literary Science Writing Award. Ben is here in town. He's done a couple events with the Bookery here on Main Street, and we're just really grateful to have him here. He'll be in conversation with Myrtle Tree Arts' own co-founder, Amira Godwin. Also on the show today, we have Justin Boyd. Justin is a culture keeper and culture maker. He is the co-founder and partner in Golden Road Gathering. He is the creator of Marco's Pizza, which may sound like a pizza joint, but actually is a tremendous community building, I would say arts organization as well here in the foothills. And our musical guest today is Doug Not Josh of Red Dirt Ruckus. So we are ready to jump in with our first interview. I should add the Bookery will be here as well with Heather Beatty Spring. And then we'll have a pop-up, pop-up, where members of the community can just jump up and promote any event that they're interested in talking about. So, without further ado, please welcome Amira Godwin and Ben Goldfarb.
Hello, Ben. I've been waiting so eagerly for this day.
Pun intended or un?
Certainly.
Yeah.
Always. I'm very into process, and though I'm, like to pretend to be a talk show host, I'm an artist and an educator by day, and very into process. Thank you, so that people can hear me. And our work right now with American River Conservancy is to help people connect to the watershed through the arts, interpreting science through the arts. And your books definitely changed my life.
Wow, thanks for saying that.
We found them at the Bookery, of course. But after that, I thought about how to digest the deep research that you do and walk away from a complex historical analysis of like Eager with maybe just a couple of words like beavers slow, spread, and hold water. And that was enough to inspire me to go forward. So in your process, do you think about your audience or what they can take away if they're not scientists or they're not going to read all the footnotes and go to the actual first-hand journals?
Yeah, certainly. I always think that I'm writing for two distinct audiences. On one hand is the lay public, people who care about nature, certainly, and are concerned about places like the American River, but don't necessarily have a background in biology or ecology or hydrology. And I'm trying to write in a way that's accessible enough and engaging enough to draw those folks in, while still writing in a way that's technically sophisticated and accurate enough that my books can be a resource for somebody who works at the California Department of Fish and Wildlife or the California Natural Resources Agency. I'm trying to be both accessible for the lay audience and sophisticated for the technical audience. And I don't know how well I walk that line, but I'm certainly thinking about those two distinct groups of readers.
I think you do. I think you make research very accessible, and the writing style makes it compelling. I'll just jump in where I found from reading this, some states in the U.S. and some individuals get the beaver connection, became beaver believers before others. And the state of Washington, for example, got the message earlier on that they passed the Beaver Bill in 2012, touting significant role in maintaining the health of the watersheds in the Pacific Northwest and promoting live trapping and relocating of beavers as a beneficial wildlife management practice. So how did it happen that Washington understood this earlier?
Yeah, it's a good question, and I think a lot of the credit really goes to native tribes, who of course have these deep spiritual and subsistence relationships with salmon, and beavers create incredible salmon habitat, right? If you're a baby salmon, you don't want to live in the free-flowing, fast-moving main stem river. You want to live in a side channel or a deep pool or an eddy or a meander. You want that complex, slow water refuge habitat, which is exactly what beavers create by building dams and forming ponds and wetlands, right? And the tribes understood that and recognized that, hey, beavers are this fantastic agent of salmon restoration. And so it was really the tribes like the Tulalip and the Yakima and the Cowlitz who pushed the state to change its laws to liberalize beaver restoration. So, it was really the tribes leading and the rest of the state coming along at first reluctantly in some cases, and then eventually enthusiastically.
So California took a long time to get there from erroneous science. Can you tell us kind of how that came about, persisted for so long?
Yeah, certainly. So, the history of fur trapping in California is really interesting in the sense that there were almost two distinct fur trades. And the first one was the maritime fur trade. It was Russian and British and Spanish and French traders, plying the California coast, really starting in the late 1700s, rather, the late 18th century. And then a few decades later, those overland trappers, people like Jedediah Smith and Kit Carson, crossed the Sierras into California. So by the time those overland trappers got to California, the maritime trappers had already removed all of the beavers. And so, those overland trappers show up, they don't see any beavers, and they basically conclude, well, there were never any beavers here. And that became enshrined as kind of conventional wisdom. And as a result, beavers were considered non-native in much of California for a very long time, and were managed, with kind of extreme prejudice by the Department of Fish and Game. And even as states like Washington were relocating beavers to increase their populations, California was actually forbidding the relocation of beavers, and so all beaver conflicts had to be solved by killing the animals rather than moving them. And one of the great things that's happened in the beaver world over the last few years is California has completely changed its approach and its mindset to beaver restoration. This book came out in 2018, and even 6 years ago, the chapter about California in this book is about how backwards California is. Yeah. And 6 years later, if I were to rewrite this book, I would be telling a totally different story about the state, because the state has really gotten on board for beaver restoration. Fish and Wildlife just did its first beaver release in 75 years this past fall on Maidu land. There's a whole beaver restoration program with millions of dollars allocated to it. So California has gone from being a kind of a laggard in the beaver world to being a leader, and that's appropriate because no state needs beavers more.
Well, I'm certainly glad it turned around. But from your book, I learned that, again, it was indigenous knowledge in some of the cases where in the language the word beaver existed in indigenous language, and so there was evidence that really hadn't been recognized or acknowledged before. Is that?
Yeah, that's exactly right. And so in sort of the 2010s or so, around 2013 to 2015, there was this group of researchers who came together basically to try to prove that beavers were in fact native to California. And they looked at all of these different evidence sources, including native language, native middens, shell and bone piles. They unearthed sticks from these deep soils, in the Sierra Nevada that had been chewed on beavers thousands of years ago. So they brought together all of these different lines of evidence to prove once and for all that beavers really do belong here.
So zooming out and looking at some of your other work, other topics you've covered, are there other instances where indigenous knowledge has really been instrumental in changing the science or the policy?
Yeah, that's such a good question. I mean, I think about the other book that I've written about wildlife crossings and the prevention of roadkill and the reconnection of large landscapes and habitat. Yeah, thanks, Amira. Thanks for plugging it. And certainly there, I mean, indigenous knowledge has been instrumental. One of the stories that I tell in that book, Crossings, is about the Confederated Salish and Kootenai tribes in Montana, and they have Highway 93, which runs through the Flathead Reservation, their land. And in the early 2000s, they basically insisted to the federal and state government that hey, you have to put wildlife crossings on this highway because this highway, this federal highway is killing the grizzly bears and elk and deer and other animals that are so important to their culture. And so the tribes basically said, listen, if you're going to widen this highway and make the problem worse, you have to include underpasses and overpasses to let wildlife safely move back and forth because this is our land and the road is a visitor here, as they put it. So certainly there are, and you could tell a version of that story about fire, about salmon, about grizzly bears in the Cascades. I mean, there are so many different resource issues that have a really strong tribal leadership component that have really moved them forward when the rest of, when state and federal governments are dragging their heels.
It's taken a long time to incorporate and integrate that kind of wisdom, unfortunately.
Yeah.
So zooming out on where maybe the other type of typical settler mentality got altered was Earth Day. And we really were excited to have you be here for Earth Day and be here for this
me
week.
too.
And so 54 years ago in July, there was this day that seemed to change the world, that 20 million people, which I read was 10% of the U.S. population at the time, got involved in Earth Day and kind of demanded then Nixon, of all people, to change U.S. policy. And we got the EPA and Clean Water Act, Clean Air Act. But there hasn't maybe been this kind of steamrolling effect of grassroots environmental organizing to the same degree. I don't know if you would agree with that, or what you're seeing as like the surprising progress or surprising failures of moving forward with environmental action.
Yeah, boy, that's such a good and difficult question, Amira. And I think like most thinking, feeling, environmentally concerned people, I kind of oscillate between despair and hope. There are times when I feel like we're going in the right direction on the issues that I write about, and other times when it feels like the problems are so enormous and intractable. And I think that's one of the reasons that I chose to write about beavers, because they are a relatively hopeful story. They're something that we are making really rapid and concrete progress on. Here's this single rodent that we nearly trapped to extinction, and fortunately we've reversed course and helped its populations recover, and now it's helping us solve all kinds of ecological issues by creating ponds and wetlands. It's sequestering carbon and building these amazing fire breaks on the landscape, preventing the destruction or the destructive spread of mega fires, and they're filtering out water pollution and creating amazing habitat for all kinds kinds of species, and keeping water on the landscape as our planet gets hotter and drier and more desiccated. And so, beavers to me are one of those issues that demonstrates that progress really is possible. We can go from a place of near extinction to a place of diversity and abundance and bounty, and we can do that by protecting wildlife in many cases, and beavers are proof of that.
It is a book that helps easily to connect to nature, and maybe crossings that you described our road system as calcified. Is that kind of a more intractable problem, and where do you see it going based on your research?
Yeah, it's a difficult one, and that's that it's funny. There are times working on crossings when I missed writing about beavers, because beavers are this hopeful story, and as you say, our road system is this relatively intractable problem. We built our highway system largely in the 1960s and 70s, before the advent of those environmental laws that came about thanks to Earth Day. I think about how different the interstate highway system would look if it had been built while we had the Clean Water Act and the National Environmental Protection Act, and it'd certainly be very different. And so, we're kind of stuck with 4 million miles of roads here in the U.S., and we can remove a couple of them here and there, and we can modify and retrofit them with wildlife crossings here and there. But ultimately, our road system is our road system, and there's not much we can do about it besides point to other countries now that are building out their infrastructure, like Kenya and Nepal and Myanmar and Brazil, and say, hey, don't make the mistakes that we made. Include wildlife crossings from the get-go, or avoid sensitive wildlife habitats altogether. Build around them rather than through them. So, as you say, our road system is definitely one of those relatively intractable problems.
I guess it's you could pin it on roads because of the speeding cars, but the other fundamental thing is that property rights. Different agencies controlling the land, state versus federal versus private versus industry, and the zoning, and it kind of takes a lot of work to create a partnership that could work for the assisted migration solutions that your book talks about. Is there one you want to highlight, maybe, where the partnership across the lands that were owned by different people made a big difference?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think one of the really hopeful examples of partnership is, here in California, it's the Liberty Canyon crossing just outside of Los Angeles over the 101, right? This overpass that's being built to reconnect these populations of mountain lions that have been fragmented by California's freeways. And, to me, that's a good example because, Caltrans is involved in that, right? So you've got this, you've got the state government, it's a federal highway, it's US 101. And, there's also a big sort of philanthropic component. The National Wildlife Federation and other environmental groups worked hard to raise a lot of private money to bring to the table to build that overpass and bridge that gap in the landscape. So that's a good example, I think, that demonstrates that, look, even though we have this kind of fragmentation across our landscape, we can bridge some of those gaps. And as you're alluding to, Amira, we do it by bringing people together first.
Right. This came up at your reading the other day. Analogous to the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, there's the rights of nature. Yeah. And then a lot of young people that are activists now are advocating that nature itself or a body of water has its own right. What do you think that's going to get us somewhere and say that our world of climate change or other problems we're having?
Yeah, I'd like to imagine that's going to help. I live in Colorado, as you mentioned, or as Paul mentioned, and one of the watersheds in Colorado is Boulder Creek, and the town of Nederland, which is kind of up by Boulder Creek's headwaters, recently granted Boulder Creek rights, which is, to my knowledge, the first time that a natural feature in the U.S., or at least in the western U.S., I think Florida had done a couple previously, but the first time that a natural feature in the American West had been granted rights. And so, you can see that movement spreading from places like Bolivia and New Zealand and Ecuador, where it's been done already, to the U.S. gradually. And I think that's a beautiful idea because, of course, when you grant rights to natural features, you also grant rights implicitly to all of the non-human organisms who live in that natural feature or around it. I think it's a really powerful instrument for the preservation of habitat and an acknowledgement that we share the land with bobcats and trout and warblers and all kinds of other critters who are conscious, sentient, thinking, feeling beings and need our help.
Well, I want to thank you for sort of elevating the non-human-centric mindset. What's next for you? Do you have another project that you're researching?
I'd love to write a book about fish. I've always loved fish. I think they're fascinating. They're largely hidden from us, concealed by water. And I'd love to write a book that brings fish into our lives in some meaningful way and heals those ancient relationships with our finned brethren. So keep an eye out for the fish book in like 2048 or something.
Oh.
Maybe
it won't take that long.
I really hope not.
Thank you so much. Thank you for being here and for your brilliant work.
Thanks so much, Amira.
Thanks.
Welcome back. Welcome back. Ben Goldfarb in conversation with Amira Godwin. And, of course, in our show notes, we'll have links, but you can find Ben Goldfarb's books, Crossings and Eager, here at the Bookery, Placerville, but, of course, wherever you choose to buy your books. Please welcome to Placertopia Live, Doug, not Josh.
The border with that music in my soul. Born on the border with that music in my soul. The rhythm up in me got me where I wanna go. Well, back one day in September 1980, a little boy was born from a man and a lady, and he said, "Child, can you hear that music playing?" And he said, "That's right, I hear what it's saying." From that day on, you know that boy, he was a singing. Found himself a set of drums and then he started banging. Before long, he had a guitar, he had a sling down the road. Shows to hear the people saying, "Born on the border with that music in my soul." Born on the border with that music in my soul. The rhythm up in me taking me where I wanna go. The first thing you learn, that's the dirty South shuffle. The Eastern cry, the blues got my feathers in a ruffle. Became the music of the border town where the reggae meet the boogie, the world get down. You know the crack of the cabinet keep the beat steady. Drum and the bass, you know they keep the rhythm heavy. It's the one drop you can't resist. You got the people on the floor shaking their hips, saying, "I'm down on the border with the music in my soul." Down on the border with that music in my soul. The rhythm up in me taking me where I wanna Hey, everybody, how you doing? What's happening?
You're Doug, right?
I am Doug, not Josh.
Yeah, not Josh. Okay, cool. Doug, not Josh, is the stage name for Doug Neal, who also has served as a technical director on Placertopia Live. He was one of the founders and installers and visionaries behind the Green Room with Jen Tai and the aforementioned Josh Haynes. Doug moved to town in 2008, started playing with Johnny Mojo in Soul Bridge, and that turned into Rusty Buckets. And that turned into Red Dirt Ruckus. And he plays mandolin, guitar, he's a DJ, a bass player, a drummer, and a dad. And we're so happy to have you on
Thanks,
this
Paul.
side of the camera.
Yeah.
Awesome.
It's a little less stressful up here, actually.
Is it? Yeah, it is. It is, because they make it all so easy.
This is the easy part.
Exactly, yeah. So I think I want to just chat with you a quick second and let you plug Red Dirt Ruckus, who's appearing at the Golden Road Gathering. Yes, because it'll be a great segue to our next guest. So tell us about there's two events, and then tell us when we can find you at Golden Road.
We've got an event coming up here, May 11th, right here on this stage at the Green Room. It is the final Golden Road lead-up show, and that's going to be us in a band called Old Mule, and we're just going to be getting hyped for the next weekend. That's right before the big thing goes down. I'm looking at Justin over here off to the side. We'll see him in just a minute. And the next day we'll be at the Fantasy Festival? I might be getting that wrong. It's put on by one of our other sound guys here, Cameron. And it's up in Auburn, and it's going to be us and Boot Juice. And then we'll be cranking back into town for the Golden Road Festival. We're going to be doing a lot there. Our fiddle player Lisa is sponsoring a kids' music showcase on Saturday morning. That's open for another week for submissions. You can go online to goldenroadgathering.com and look at the kids' showcase tab there and get some details about that. You can find us doing shenanigans all weekend and then playing on Sunday.
Fantastic. So Doug will be back in the second half of the show. One more time. Doug Neal. I do. We're back. Placertopia Live. Our next guest is Justin Boyd. He is a community builder and founder of Marco's Pizza and a co-creator and co-founder of Golden Road Gathering. Thanks for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me here. This is great.
So, yeah, it's great. So, for those of you that sadly perhaps did not make it to Marco's Pizza in its original location, to let you know, it was a food establishment, a beer and kombucha establishment, and had amazing music. And it was down in Coloma and near the river, and it sort of, I would say, exemplified like the best of the river community in the summertime and what this region has to offer with the South Fork of the American. So let's start there. Tell us about how it happened, or what your vision was for it, and what's next.
Yeah, absolutely. So Marco's started from an Italian guy, Marcos Grassi. He moved into the area as a raft guide, and he saw this opportunity and a need for that pizza place, some good Italian food, and he started Marco's Cafe 25 years ago. So now 28 years ago. And my ex-partner at the time was looking for a job. She is from Nepal, and I told Marco, I'm like, you need to hire her. So she got her foot in the door and worked for Marco's until he left. Someone else bought the business, had it for about 4 years and started kind of driving it down. The quality was going downhill. Fortunately, we had an opportunity to buy it. We did. It was right during 2007 when everything was kind of falling apart, and we're like, well, I mean, seems like a great time to buy a restaurant. So we did it. It worked. It just, at that time, there was usually about one night a week of music. And then slowly over the years, I started booking more and more music and making friends with Doug, not Josh, which I have him in my phone as that. And just kind of really enjoyed that aspect of it, having good food, but also providing place for a lot of local musicians. And then every once in a while, some touring musicians would come through and hit us up. In the last couple years we were there, it was pretty interesting to see a lot more touring bands wanting to play Marco's. And I'm like, how did you guys even find out about this place? But the word was out. And so that we lost our location, unfortunately. And then just a couple months ago, new opportunity popped up. We are starting to build out a kitchen in the old Lotus store, which is right near Henderson Lotus Park in Coloma.
Yeah, and it's a really cool location. My friend Clint always says, we can live in a kind of future space where we say like, oh, 2024, wasn't that a great year? And, 26, that was awesome, So I'm living in that future space, and I can see that the Lotus store is going to be really spectacular for your vibe and Marco's, and so.
Well, yeah, we're really looking forward to it. It's it's an amazing spot. It's been a store since 1889. So it's just got so much character. I went in there. I'm like, yep, this is gonna work. So.
Yeah. And so in the meantime, during the downtime, it was really remarkable because you showed up, just about everywhere. One thing to plug was you created these concerts for a cause with Wakamatsu Farm and American River Conservancy. How'd that go for you?
Yeah, it was great. So the year before we lost our location, I was already planning stuff. So I talked to American River Conservancy and was kind of planting the seed, like, what about this spot? What about doing this? Part of it was looking for a little bit of security for myself to have some work so I wouldn't have to go find a different job. And so we came together with American River Conservancy. They have this resilience fund, which helps support all the land purchases that they've made over the years. And so we went ahead and scheduled out all these dates, and I kind of took the best local bands that I had booked over the years and had a lot of local draw and booked them on this series. And what I thought was something that was really amazing is that I live Garden Valley, so I drive Placerville up Gold Hill every other day or so, and I'd never really spent time at Wakamatsu, and I didn't know very many people that had, so it was really cool to bring, we probably 2,000 people there over the summer, and people were just like, I never knew this existed. This is amazing.
Yeah.
And, those are the kind of stuff that really, I think, helps to make those places more appreciated. Yeah,
for sure. ARC has been, kind of gradually utilizing Wakamatsu more since its 150th anniversary. That was the first time we set foot there. And we had Jamie Van Camp on the show, See the Elephant Theater, and they had done this incredible, recreation original play of the, this is a 150-year-old silk colony, an attempt at a silk colony during the gold rush, where Japanese family moved and did not succeed at creating silk because it turned out the region wasn't good for growing mulberries. And some other reasons led to its demise, but it is this incredible historic place, and I believe it was the first Japanese colony in America. So they are utilizing it in different ways. Myrtle Tree Arts has been trying to do events. They're doing events there, starting with Earth Data 3 years ago, and then Fireland last year, and then the upcoming Ripe Area. and then yourself doing these great concerts there. So that's really cool. It's a real resource. You also are doing and there's so much to talk about with you, and we're going to get to Golden Road in just a minute. But you do a beautiful community market in Coloma every other Saturday too. So how long's that been going, or what's going on with that?
Right. So that just started this fall, and that came out of also losing a job in a place and having this moment of like, should I just go and get a job? But I haven't had a boss in 17 years other than my wife, so it's hard to make that change. So we started looking at ways that we could sell pizza with our mobile pizza oven wagon, and one of the ways was farmers markets. And we're like, well, how do we start a farmers market? You have to get your farm certified, and fortunately we have a big organic garden, and so we got it certified by the county, so we're certified producers.
Yeah, and you make hot sauce too, is that right?
That's
Garden
right.
Val- tell us about that brand.
So yeah, I have a couple hot sauces at the Placerville Co-op. I'm really into fermenting, and so I've kind of come up with a couple recipes over the years that I'm sticking with. So I try to get as many peppers going out of my garden as possible, but
Really cool.
this year the garden's really on the low end of the important scale, unfortunately. But the farmers market's really gone great. We actually are working with the Gold Discovery Parks Association, which is a nonprofit that supports educational programs, and so they're at the state park. We are directly working with the state park to do this farmers market, and they're providing the space. And the whole state park system has been looking at this as kind of a pilot program because it's doing so well. They want to implement it in other state parks. So it's been really cool to see that just blow up this winter. And a lot of people are like, "You're starting a farmers market in the winter. It's not going to work."
Yeah.
But it has. And we're like,
Yeah.
so we're our last spring market is this Saturday, and Lisa Bond of Red Dirt Ruckus is doing the kids program there that they'll be performing at the Golden Road. So it's gonna be a pretty special event, and I'll be there selling pizza.
Yeah, we're gonna be out there.
Yeah,
actually,
absolutely.
Yeah, so really cool. So so by hook or by crook, you're creating community wherever you go. I can't really figure out when you sleep, but but why is it important? Why do we need community?
Well, I feel that in this area, there's so many little small towns, and there's really not that many places for people to gather. And so one thing about Marcos was that it was kind of at these crossroads of all these roads. You have the divide, you've got Auburn, and then coming from Shingle Springs, Placerville. And so it actually became a place where people could come and be like, cool, we're going to Marcos on Friday night. So the draw of all these different areas was really pretty neat to see, and to hear people show up from out of the area on holiday and just be like, this is amazing. Like, where are all these people from? And this is our community. So
Yeah.
I think it's just really important to have those kind of open spaces where it's just like non-judgmental free space for people to come.
Really? Yeah. Excellent. So this let's seg, man. Let's go there. The festival, Golden Road, is not a festival. It's called a gathering. So it's kind of in the same spirit in a way. Yeah.
Yeah, I totally agree. The whole name just kind of came out between me and my partner Ryan. We're just throwing things back and forth, and first was Gold Country Gathering, and it's like, well, that might be a little too minor-ish, but Golden Road popped up, and we're like, that's perfect. Like, we're on Highway 49, Gold Country. So it is a gathering. Like, we want people to come. We want it to be a family-friendly event where it's kind of a free space, and I think that like inviting everyone there and having a lot of showcase for kids. Like the Gold Discovery Parks Association is bringing a whole gold panning event for kids. So there'll be
Sweet.
literally gold
Yeah.
panning all weekend for the kids, which I think is an amazing thing in itself. So
Yeah, that's really sweet. I was, I was in the kids' music field for 20 years. I ran a music school in the Bay Area, and then I had a band called the Sippy Cups, and we became national, and our national agent began booking us at festivals like Lollapalooza, for example. And Perry Farrell, the founder of Lollapalooza, had a family with young kids, and so he had created Kids-a-Palooza, which was a stage for kids bands or for James Johnson or Patti Smith or whoever wanted to come over from the main stage and play for kids. The only problem was Lollapalooza is in Grant Park, Chicago. It's like a giant, scalding hot parking lot, and anyone in their right mind with kids would not bring their kids. They would get grandma or a sitter so they could go to Lollapalooza. I think the El Dorado County Fairgrounds is much more family friendly, and so I hope you have some success bringing out families.
It's really, it will be, we have a large tinted shade area on the grass with, tables of a bunch of stuff for kids to do, gold panning, and I think there'll be more than kids just gold panning and doing art, but, that's part of it too. It's like, you don't have to be a kid to enjoy these kid things. Like, go ahead and let that out.
Yeah, sounds good. We're Ripe area as well this year is very kid-centric. There's lots of kids' activities, and there's going to be a pageant and kids' parade, which, if anyone's listening, we're trying to find some marching band drummers. I'm asking everybody I can find, because unfortunately the high school band is gone for the summer. Let's talk about the festival. Grungy, twangy, world sounds, otherworldly vibes, breakbeats, glitch, circus, dubstep, porch space cowboy blues, swamptronica, and electro twang. And that's just the ticket takers. No, those are just some names thrown out on a bunch of the bands. Obviously, Railroad Earth, who is in a different incarnation due to just a shift during that time. Lindsay Liu, who's really an exciting performer, is going to front Railroad Review.
I think that's really exciting.
Yeah. And then, Moon Tricks, Beats Antique, Dirtwire, and my favorite artist that I discovered, by the way, if you want to discover the Golden Road artists, just go to Spotify and choose Golden Road Gathering 24 and listen to the playlist, and you can just check out all the artists and figure out which day you want to go or who you want to see. But my favorite new artist I discovered was Ryan Montbleau, whose song I Don't Want to Go features my favorite line, I am all alone with my old friend psilocybin. So I had never heard that in a song, so that's exciting.
So it's kind of funny. He's playing at my wife's best friend's 40th birthday party like the week before. She's like, should I tell him anything? I'm like, I don't think so. But he's East Coast, Vermont, so it'd be cool seeing his band out here. I see you have Steve Poltz on the list, and I don't know if you guys have listened to Steve Poltz at all, but American singer-songwriter that's just hilarious, and he just doesn't stop. I think the lineup this year is really amazing, diverse. Like he said, all those nice adjectives that are just like, what? This is music we're talking about?
I know, man. Porch space cowboy blues. I mean, I'm sure I invented that in the 80s, but no one was interested. Like, this stuff, these bands are great. Check out the playlist. It's going to make you want to run out and get your ticket for Golden Road Gathering.
Yeah, so we have music starting at 11 in the morning, and it will be going until 3 a.m. So it's outside at the stage until 11 p.m., which having that happen here in Placerville is amazing, but they are, we're getting a lot of support from the city, the police department, the fairgrounds are very excited about us having this festival. It brings a lot to the town. It brings a ton of business to Rayleigh's. Rayleigh's, if you look for a sponsor, it's like Christmas for them, but.
Totally, and I could say from last year that after the main stage shut down, the party begins, and there's like a distinctly Burning Man kind of vibe. I don't know, is Andy's thing going to be back out there again? Or?
Yeah, so fortunately, it sounds like the Decofish art car is going to be there, shooting flames and having DJs play on it. It's a special gift, and that these guys happen to be in town and don't get to take this thing out enough.
Yeah, so this is Nectar Events, and they've created I didn't realize it was a fish, but to me it looked like an English double-decker bus with musicians up on top and full DJ rig, like incredible sound system, and people can just climb up the stairs and be dancing on this vehicle, and then occasionally, it shoots giant flames into the air. I mean, this thing is on its own is worth attending to go see. And then after that, the indoor spaces open up, and you had amazing bands last year in their projects, horn sections, and I forget what was the name of that. God. So I'm sure you have
March 4th.
Yeah, March 4th.
Marching band, which you might need, sounds
That's what I'm talking about. It was like Brazilian marching band. It was like insane, like indoor artists.
That band is, I'm sure they'll be coming back next year. They all pile in one bus with like 20 band members, and it's amazing. But the indoor, this year what's really cool is a lot of these bands that are playing our festival are friends, and there'll be a lot of crossover, and we have, I just can't wait to see what kind of jams come out of an extra 5 people and a band showing up.
How great. So if you are interested in getting tickets, they are still available. The full weekend pass, I think some of those are sold out. But
no, it's still available.
Okay.
It's the pass thing was weird today. I looked today.
Yeah, it said sold out this morning. Okay, still available.
They're still available.
And there's day tickets. And I want to tell you this because I attended last year. The vibe is really great. All the people running it, security, ticketing, safety, super chill. Very good vibe. So well done. We're looking forward to another year.
Yeah, thank you.
GoldenRoadGathering.com to get your stuff. It'll be in our show notes. Justin Boyd, thanks for joining us on
Hey, I appreciate it.
Live. Appreciate it. All right. So we are back with the Bookery Reads and Heather Beatty-Spring, who I think is, they were so gracious to host Ben Goldfarb this week. Our friend of the community and spiritual heartbeat of Placerville, Monty Kawahara, was the bridge.
I love it.
He was the bridge who brought Ben into our community. But I think there was a funny story about this anyway, right? Was that the Bookery he began showing, or how was it that Eager wound up at the Bookery? Yeah.
I don't know exactly how that worked between Darren and Monty, but all I know is that Darren knew how much I loved the book Eager and stocked it immediately once we started selling new books at the bookstore. And maybe Monty saw it there and bought some to give away to friends, and I don't know. I can't remember exactly how the story goes, just that I have always been Ben Goldfarb's biggest fan, and
well, there it is.
Then he got to come to our store.
That's it. And our local, our friend Monty was, dare I say, roommates at college, at grad school.
Yeah, when
roommates
I
with
found
Ben.
that
So it
piece
worked
of
out really
information
well.
out, it blew my mind.
Yeah, it worked out really well. So good. So what do you got to read for us today? What do you have to show for us?
So I brought a couple books, thinking about our event Monday, Earth Day, community books. I actually went on the little walk with Elena from American River Conservancy first, which she took us on a nature walk through Main Street and just looked at different things that are growing right here in our town. We walked along the bike trail a little bit and then up just even through like the parking lot over there between Empress and Rocker Oyster Fellows, and she showed us different plants. And we walked up behind the alley. So thinking about that, and then she closed our walk, and there was a pretty good group with us. I would say, I don't know, a couple dozen people maybe. All different ages. And actually one of my students, because I also teach part-time at the local community college, one of my students came and she told me yesterday, I saw her again, that it was one of the most memorable experiences of her life. And I think it's because it took her out of her normal zone to just walk and talk about plants and name plants and be with this, kind of multi-generational group of people, some mostly that were strangers to each other. So anyway, I was thinking about that and I thought, what better way to get to know your community than to get to know your plants and your natural environment? So I brought Secrets of the Oak Woodlands, which is a book we sell new at Bookery. And Kate Marienchild, the author, actually came last year, but I was out of town and didn't get to meet her. And I think Elena from ARC brought her as well and led a little walk, maybe at Wakamatsu, I can't remember. I wish Elena was here to clarify that. But this book is so great. Probably some of you have it or have read it. The reason I love this book in particular when I'm getting ready to take a walk pretty much anywhere in this area is that she tells about these creatures and living beings in our area that we're really familiar with, such as like the scrub jay. But she tells them in a storytelling way that makes them super fun and interesting. Have you read it?
No.
Okay, you and Amira would love it. So I thought I'd share a little bit of a couple of my favorite parts.
Yeah, read.
Everything from this book is very familiar, like I said, but there are surprising facts, and she puts things in such engaging ways that you feel like you have a new relationship with these familiar beings. For example, poison oak. Probably none of us think that we like poison oak, right?
Right.
Have you ever had poison oak?
I've had it a lot.
Okay.
And I'm a mountain biker, and so it's a constant companion.
And you get it pretty bad?
And I get it pretty bad,
Okay.
and I've even had to go the steroid route or
Yeah.
whatever, what they do when you're in really bad shape with it. And also, I'm always ringing in my head is this idea that Native Americans would eat it, I think, in certain state in order to create some immunity to it. So I always picture that, especially in the spring when it looks so gentle and thin and green. And I think,
so
could I
pretty.
eat a little bit of this and might that help my immunity? But I'm scared.
Okay.
What do you got?
I'm glad you said that because she actually closes this chapter, as she closes most of the chapters, with information on how the indigenous people use that particular, or their relationship. A lot of times it's an animal, but their relationship with that particular natural item. And she doesn't talk about eating it, but she does talk about things that native tribes used. There's like a black sap that comes out of the stems, and they used that to treat warts, cankers, and skin cancers. And they also mixed it up to use to dye things, and they wove baskets with the branches. So I do kind of wonder if that exposure helped build some kind of immunity. But she closes this particular section, the uses by Native Californians section, by saying, Native American herbal lore is full of remedies for poison oak dermatitis, suggesting that many individuals had allergic reactions to it. So in other words, a lot of people maybe assume that there was like a widespread immunity, and I don't think that was necessarily the case. She says, as all tribes were not of the same genetic stock, their levels of immunity probably varied, undoubtedly more so after European genes entered the gene pool. Frequent exposure and the widespread practice of, here we go, eating small amounts of poison oak may have enhanced immunity for some peoples. But, she adds, most contemporary health practitioners discourage all of these practices as the consequences could be severe. And I know as a person with family members who've had to use steroids to treat it, that you can get it like even in your throat and things like that. So maybe avoid it if you don't seem to have natural immunity. But the cool thing is, she talks about, let me read you a little part because you'll get a little bit more of her voice here. Well, first of all, if you'll indulge me, I have a few minutes. I'll read you the beginning. She says, this is the beginning of the poison oak chapter. Over the past several years, against the advice of friends and relatives, I have fallen for someone new. At first, I was barely aware of his existence, much less his steady presence in my life. But whenever I sat down at my outdoor writing table, there he was, 8 feet away, always available and interesting. Eventually, I became aware of his radiant good looks. And if you think about it, we're all inclined to hate poison oak, but it's actually beautiful, especially like you said, in the spring. His enticing fragrance and his gentle way with birds who fearlessly land on his upstretched arms. I noticed his height, which is greater than my own, and his breadth, which is almost twice his height. I admired the supple grace with which he moves in a breeze and the way light radiates from his many soft surfaces. I began envying the birds who sleep in his arms at night, knowing that I will never so much as hold his hand. So she starts to introduce us to this idea of poison oak, but she sheds this new light where over 50 species of native Californian birds use poison oak in many different ways. Many of them eat it, they nest in it, they hide in it from predators, and many mammals eat it. So this is the other line I was going to read you. Few humans realize that we and a few other primates are the only animals to suffer ill effects from poison oak. Everyone else seems to love it. So it's true. I don't know if you've ever even thought about that, but you do kind of assume with something that feels that toxic to us that like everybody in the forest must have to stay away. But no, absolutely not. It serves many different uses. And in fact, Kate Marienchild goes on to say, let me see if I can find this line, that she would say it's one of, it must be in the end here, one of the most useful native plants to the non-human community, so for me as a person whose family hates poison oak and who grew up with fear about it and can pick it out anytime we're on a hike and it's plentiful. So I have family members who won't even go on certain trails in our area because they're scared of how much poison oak there is. For me, this was kind of mind-blowing and really cool to learn more about poison oak. Another one that's interesting is the California buckeye tree. Are you guys all familiar with buckeye? For some reason, and there's gorgeous illustrations, by the way, in this book. So there's the buckeye. Illustrations by Ann Meyer Maglinte. For some reason, I only figured out a few years ago that buckeye smells absolutely incredible when it's in bloom. I hope you all are aware of that because I wasn't, and now I make a point to go out in May and June when the buckeye's in bloom and just breathe it in. And I do recommend the Red Shack Trail if you are familiar with that. If you want a local trail to discover a lot of our oak woodlands, the Red Shack Trail is a really good trail. Not quite yet, the buckeye's not in bloom yet. There's a lot of beautiful wildflowers right now. But in May, perfect time for that trail and for smelling and seeing California buckeye. That's a tree that I didn't even really realize is a native California tree, many, many uses in the natural world. And I'll read you a tiny bit of the beginning of that passage too, because this also gives you a taste for her writing. California buckeyes unfurl their soft, many-fingered leaves in late winter and early spring, bringing luminous green cheer to landscapes still clad in somber grays. This is one of the reasons I love buckeye, is that it blooms in a different schedule than a lot of the other trees and shrubs in our area. In May and June, they again brighten our hillsides and canyons by transforming into giant flower candelabras. And in fall, their seeds, the largest produced by any California native plant, droop like exotic testicular ornaments from bare silvery branches. And I always think it's kind of sad that by late summer, the buckeye trees look all dead. They kind of have that look of like the trees in fall. You've probably seen them.
That's how I picture it, actually.
But it's a biological trick that they do because they're able to go dormant earlier in the summer, and I learned that from this book, as early as July, sidestepping the problem of water loss during the driest months. So they're a really cool and beautiful tree that I learned a lot about. Something that's interesting about those seed pods, I guess, is that they're highly toxic to many mammals, and this includes humans. But western gray squirrels are, I guess they've kind of evolved biologically to be immune to those toxins, so they'll eat them. And in my own backyard, another reason I love this book is it just feels so personal, and you can see these things that she describes happening in your own backyard. I've watched our little western gray squirrels grab one of those big old buckeye seed pods and take it up into the oak tree branches and munch on them. And you can just watch them. I had binoculars one day and just watched that little squirrel like taking yummy little bites and crunching down. So and it's kind of cool to know, oh, that's super toxic and most animals couldn't get away with that, but the western gray squirrel could. So yeah, I love this book. My other favorite sections, and I won't read anymore, but I'll just tell you there's a fantastic section on California quail and about the families, the huge tribes, I forget the word, coveys that they get together.
A covey of quail.
A covey of quail, 25 to 75 birds in the coveys. And of course, you guys are probably seeing the quail all over the place right now. You're hearing their call. They have over 14 different distinct communication patterns. And the babies talk to themselves, the little embryos, while they're inside the eggs. So they start learning those little speech patterns while they're in the eggs. As long as they're touching each other, they can talk to each other, which is super cute. That's something I learned from this book, too. So
That's remarkable.
yeah, I wanted to talk about that just because I was thinking about walking and hiking and how cool it is to get out into the natural world in your community. And for me, as a book lover, like I always talk about when I walk, I'm always thinking about things I've read. It's nice to have a book to take along with you because you feel more informed about that walk. So I also wanted to share with you another book you guys are probably familiar with, The Laws Field Guide to the Sierra Nevada. You guys take this with you when you go up hiking, I'm sure. Yeah. This is John Muir Laws, one of my favorite naturalists. His illustrations are absolutely incredible. You can hear a really good interview with him on the Golden State Naturalist podcast. Michelle Follner was here on Monday, too. Her interview with him made me cry. It's so beautiful. It's about falling in love with the natural world. So hearing that and then looking at this guidebook when I'm like going up in the mountains just made me feel even more moved to be able to see these things in person. So highly recommend having this field guide rather than trying to use, apps on your phone can be great, and I use those too, but it's just so much more satisfying and also sometimes more practical because you might be out of range to have this book. And this is like a narrow book, so you can stick it in your back pocket in your backpack pretty easily.
Yeah, for sure.
Whereas this one, you'd more like read before and just feel more like you can know those stories more completely.
Going in.
Yeah.
So yeah, John Muir Laws, I think, sort of helped define the idea of nature journaling.
Yeah, that's what he talks about on that podcast
and,
episode.
that's been inspiring to us. During Ripe Area, there are a bunch of workshops, and we had David Rothenberg doing recording with hydrophone at Wakamatsu Pond, and then Miguel Noya will be coming, and he and I are going to be doing another, what we're calling audio nature journaling.
Oh, that's
so
cool.
just kind of exploring using simple recording apps. You can use voice memo, actually. So we're encouraging participants. That's on May 11th at Wakamatsu Farm. It's free, and you can sign up for it at bit.ly or bit.ly/ripe area. And you go and record. Maybe you record the same place, like a place in nature that you like, and you go on a regular basis, and you learn from what you're journaling. Essentially, you're touching in and hearing the sounds of a place and then comparing it over time, the same way you would be observing or doing a written nature journal or a sketched art nature journal.
You could probably accompany your audio with some sketches and writings if you wanted. Do you do any of that?
We'll encourage that.
Yeah,
We have some great artists in Ripe Area, and we could have them come along and encourage. So Heather Beatty Spring, as always, thank you for joining us from the Bookery.
Love it. Thank you.
Please welcome back to Placertopia Live, Doug, not Josh.
Hey, everybody, welcome back. Hey, Garrett, could I get that little guy right there? Well, that first song I played earlier, that was an original tune. Oh, that's my problem. It's an MP, not a UP. And this song my dad wrote back in the 70s. Originally played by a band called Moonpipe Dance Band out of El Paso, Texas. I've been out on this road for a long time, driving this bus all day long. And I haven't seen you for such a long time. We're just trying to get back home. Not a day goes by that thoughts of you and I don't run through my head like a storm. And I don't know why with time going by I keep putting us through this when it's so long. We're just trying to get back home. I'm getting tired of being all alone. Won't have to call you tonight on the phone, 'cause we're just about to get back home. Well, there's got to be a reason for all that's going on. Someday you'll see I was right all along, but I'll keep on trying with one thing in mind. Things will get better for both you and I. Not a day goes by that thoughts of you and I don't run through my head like a storm. And I don't know why with time going by I keep putting us through this when it's on. We're just trying to get back home. Getting tired of being all alone. Won't have to call you tonight on the phone, 'cause we're just about to get back home. Oh, we're just about to get back home. Yeah, we're just about to get back home. Oh, Thank you. Thanks, Daddy Neil. I'm just going to stay in the same key, in the same kind of style of music, if that's all right with you guys. It's a brand new song. I'm 12 miles from El Paso, got 3 days on the road. Staring out of my window at the place I came from. Roads they stretch long out here, seems they all bring me back home. No memories start rushing in down that old dusty road. God holds the Rio Grande and there's fire in the sky. A young girl who looks to West California in my eyes. Here in the old home place, feeling miles on my bones. And everyone can tell you a tale of the old dusty roads. When my feet rambled, my heart stayed behind. Time things can crumble, the strongest walls can fall. The space left behind will remind you to savor it all. Got over Rio Grande in the center memory. The dirt beneath my feet showed me who I'm supposed to be. Now I've grown and grown, there's still miles left to go. I'll never forget my first drive. Down that old dusty road, down that old dusty road, down that old dusty road, down that old dusty road. Thank y'all very much. Check it out, reddirtruckus.com. See you next time.
Who never dies. Will you shake his hand? Will you shake his hand? Will you shake his hand? Doug, not Josh. Yeah. So you might not know this. I did shout out a bunch of his other talents and instruments, but he's also an amazing graphic artist, Fresh Mint Design, and he's the designer of all these Golden Road, the whole Golden Road Festival, and a lot of the Green Room stuff. And he worked with us at Myrtle Tree Arts on a Sonic Fault Lines Festival. So there's a little plug, Fresh Mint Design, amazing. Thanks, Doug. Yeah. Yep. You've been seeing title cards if you're on the video stream for Ripe Area Festival, June 2nd at Wakamatsu Farm, sponsored by American River Conservancy and Myrtle Tree Arts, as well as funded by a grant from the California Creative Corps, California Arts Council, City of Sacramento, and the Sacramento Office of Arts and Culture, and Sacred Roots, Pure Life, and who have been guests on the show and have sponsoring Golden Road and sponsored just a tremendous amount of great cultural events here in the area. So I just want to plug all that. What? And the Placerville Food Co-op, thank you. Who've also been on the show and who co-sponsored the Bookery events this week with Ben Goldfarb and Earth Day. So it's really a wonderful community coming together around these important topics. So, speaking of important topics, this is our section of the program called Hop On, where just about anybody can just come up and get on this microphone and plug something they want to plug. Who do we have today, Associate Producer Rena Wakefield? Dylan Smith Bocadoro from the Green Room Social Club. Come on up. You got so many names, man. I'm jealous. That's like Paul Godwin. Dylan Smith Bocadoro.
Many aliases.
You're looking fine today. You look like a miner.
I feel like a miner.
In the soul mining. Wasn't that an album by the or something? Anyway, Dylan, what's up? You are I think maybe the newest member of the Green Room family, but absolutely one of the most passionate and everyone can find you either behind the piano or at the door or somewhere in the club almost every day. So welcome, and we're so happy to have you on the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me on, Paul. Yeah, so just a few, I'll start off with my thanks. So Rena, thank you very much. Mr. Paul, thank you, sir. Golden Road Gathering, thank you guys. And the Green Room Social Club. And so, yeah, we have Doug Not Josh, and we have another lead-up show to the Golden Road Gathering. That'll be May 11th here with special guest Old Mule, so come check that out. That'll be a good time. And then a few days after that, so today I got introduced as Dylan Smith Bocadoro, but I will be in a much different form a few days after that. I'll have a show here under the alias Chillbilly Dilly. Hillbilly Dilly may come out. He wears overalls and looks less like a miner, more like a... Actually, still kind of looks like a miner a little bit.
But I'm digging the Chillbilly Dilly moniker. That's working for me.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank
yeah,
you. We're trying to, hillbillies have had a bad rep over the years. So,
Right.
Right. And we live in these golden hills here. I grew up in El Dorado Hills, Golden Hills. So we're on the Golden Road Gathering. So
El Dorado Hills, where you're least likely to meet any aforementioned Billies.
absolutely.
Right.
When I go back there now, everyone's like, "Where are you from?"
Where
and
are
I'm
you
like, "Just
from?
up the hill
Just up
here.
the
Follow
hilly."
that Golden Road."
out.
Ba-dum-ts.
Cool. So we got May 11th.
May 11th for the Red Dirt Ruckus show. My show will be May 14th, and I'm going to do a special giveaway that day to get some of y'all in the door. I'm personally going to buy a ticket to Golden Road Gathering. We're going to do a raffle, so anyone that shows up that day and buys a ticket to the show is going to get a golden ticket. And yeah, you're going to get, at the end of it, we're going to draw a name, so hopefully that gets some people in the door.
That is a really sexy promo, man.
Ooh,
well
thank
done.
you.
Well done.
Thank you. I'm also, if I can get the blessing of the Green Room, I'm going to talk to them about doing a specialty one-night-only drink that night called the Chill Billy. And it's going to be a non-alcoholic beverage or a CBD drink. And we're going to make it all fancy. And if we can, I'm going to hopefully partner with some kind of local organization here. Maybe like I can
love
talk
it.
to you.
Maybe the co-op or
the co-op,
or
stand-up
Dr.
Placer,
Deb's Herbals.
Dr. Whatever.
Get
Sign
some
me up.
kava with your CBD.
Yeah.
Something. Yeah.
And then for those of us that want to have a little fun but not too much fun, maybe we could do one called the Dirty Hillbilly, which is a drink of mine that I like. It's going to be a Pilsner, a little salted rim, maybe an olive or two, but, nothing too crazy.
A little bit of brake fluid, maybe.
WD-40 is my usual go-to.
Very cool. Very cool.
And then right after that, there will be a Golden Road preview show on 5/15 with all of the the Green Room Unplugged All-Stars, and we will all be performing at the Golden Road Gathering at the Golden Road Gathering Green Room stage.
Oh, okay. I love it. So Green Room's going to have a stage at Golden Road, and
Yes,
you'll
sir.
all be performing there.
Sunday morning, I do believe, May 19th.
Wonderful.
I'm excited.
How great. So I don't know what to call you. Dilly. Can I just call you Dilly?
You can call me Dilly.
Thanks for hopping on
Thank you,
with us
Paul.
today.
Thank you for having me on. Thank you, sir.
Awesome.
Appreciate
Look forward
you.
to it.
Thank you,
I'll
thank
be
you.
at that raffle. Yeah. Okay, I think we have one more hop on. Do we? Ruth Michelson from the Placerville Art Gallery. Very cool. She's no stranger to Placertopia Live, and she's no stranger to great events on Main Street. She plugs and creates the Third Saturday Art Walk, which is always a huge night on Main Street. But I think I almost begged you to talk about another project you're involved with today.
Right. I'd be glad to do that.
Yeah,
So the other event is coming up June 8th.
a little
And
closer.
A little closer. Okay, how's
Good.
that?
Yeah.
June 8th, a Saturday, Golden History Days. It happens to coincide with when the wagon train comes through town. The wagon train, that's a whole nother deal. That's the Highway 50 Wagon Train Association. They make the week-long trek from Nevada to Placerville to reenact when the wagon train immigrants came to town. But we feel what's really important is who was here already. What cultural diversity did we have here at the time of the gold rush? And so the event we have in town is all about that. We have this year for the first time some Chinese folks who will come and represent their efforts with the railroad. We have Japanese. We have people from the Wakamatsu who come out and tell the story. We have Margie Lopez Reed, who has the booth regarding the California Hispanic community. We have James Marquez, who has Center Street Gallery, who has a wonderful children's booth of crafting, of Native American crafting, some soapstone carving. And we have Black Americans represented through the I'm trying to remember, the Black Buffalo Soldiers, and this year we're hoping to get the Black Cowboys from Oakland to also come up. I also want to say that Andrew Vonderschmidt, who has the Buried History 501c3, is really leading the effort down at this end of the street, the east end of the street, for Living History. This is an all-day event. This is from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. And in the center by Bell Tower, we have a stage of music all day. And that's Allie Jones and Marela Compton, who put that together for us, and Josh. Oh, and I should add that the Green Room Social Club is going to be sponsoring yet a secondary stage down at this end of the street, the saloon stage, and we'll be having many of our musicians be in both places, and we'll also have other more local acts down
Excellent.
at this end.
It really sounds terrific. So thank you for telling diverse stories about this place and trying to bring that into the discussion and into the celebration of our history.
Well, thank
Thanks,
you.
Ruth Michelson.
Okay, thank you.
Good. We'll put it in the show notes. We'll put it in the show notes. So our next program is on May 16th, when we will be featuring a Native American storyteller, Kimberly Shining Star Petrie, and Venezuelan American ambient ensemble Dogon, of which I am 50%, along with Miguel Noya. That evening, there will be a Ripe Area preview show featuring many of the artists and speakers from Ripe Area, and Dogon, again, will be featured in that show, 7 p.m., May 16th. Rena Wakefield, associate producer, hopping up.
Thank you, Paul. I definitely want to just...
Get in there.
Oh, I want you to know how much I appreciate the work that you do and bringing me on board of Placertopia. It's so much fun. And I want to plug a storytelling event that I have been given the opportunity to host here at the Green Room. The next one is going to be May 19th. So for those of you who aren't able to attend the Golden Road Gathering on the 19th, we will be having Adrienne Beatty perform her music, as well as Cloud Spotter. And it's going to have a laureate lineup. We're going to have the Poet Laureate of Reno, of Antioch, and then our local Poet Laureate, Stephen Meadows, will be reading, and then our open mic will follow. So hope to see you all there. And I did want to announce that Ben Goldfarb brought books that are in the back that are available for purchase. So please definitely, and he might be available to give an autograph as well, since he's here still. So definitely check that out. Thank you all.
Thanks, Rena, and thanks for your excellent steerage and production. We also want to thank our technical crew today, which was Garrett Hand on the board for the first time, because Doug, you know, and especially our viewers and our listeners. Once again, we are on Green Room, Club Green Room YouTube channel. You can see the live video of the show, and then the audio is broadcast and archived on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and iHeart Radio. Placertopia Live is presented by Myrtle Tree Arts and the Green Room Social Club. We are supported by the Placerville Cannabis Community Benefit Fund. And, you know, you might be wondering about that. How can I get some of that cannabis? No, you might be wondering. But what that is that when we approved having cannabis clubs in town, those clubs agreed to carve out some of their profits every year, and that money would be distributed to community organizations. And so we are a recipient of some of that money. We really appreciate it. I guess I will say for everyone at Placertopia Live, it's been a really great show. Thank you to Ben Goldfarb, Justin Boyd, Doug Not Josh, Heather Beatty Spring, guest interviewer Amira Godwin, and we will see you back on May 16th for Placertopia Live. I'm Paul Godwin. Our theme music is by Grayson Howard. Additional music was from New Dog Records, newdogrecords.com.